Andrew Neiman is a first-year student at Shaffer Conservatory of Music. He is a drummer and always exposes himself to practice. On one of Andrew's lonely practice days, Terence Fletcher, who is one of the best music teachers there, sees him and asks him to play for him. But this meeting isn't going so well. At night, Andrew goes to the cinema with his father, where he tells him that he met Terence Fletcher, but the meeting didn't go well. The next day, in the practice session of the amateur school children, Andrew is the substitute of the main drummer of the group and obviously doesn't have a good relationship with that group. Everyone in the group is waiting for a day to Terence Fletcher choose one of them and take them to the first team. At night, Andrew practices as usual. The next day, at the beginning, he plays the drums, but the coach wants the main drummer to sit because he makes a mistake. Right after, Fletcher enters and asks the instructor to take over the class. He tests the whole group and finally chooses Andrew and tells him to come to room B16 tomorrow for practice. This was so energizing for Andrew to tell that girl who was in charge of the cinema buffet he used to go there with his father and buy from her and purpose his feeling and make a date with her. The next morning, Andrew wakes up a little late and rushes to room B16, but when he arrives, he sees that no one exists in the class, and when he sees the schedule, he realizes that the class is at 9 a.m. and Fletcher told him, "Be there at 6 o'clock. Everyone from the previous class is there before 9 o'clock and Terence Fletcher himself is there at 9 o'clock. Terence Fletcher is a strict teacher and this has made everyone in the class to be afraid of him and do their best not to be scolded by him." In the very first meeting where Andrew is present, Terence Fletcher, a person who wasn't disorganized but out of fear when he asked who was disorganized, he accepted and beat him out of the group in a way that made him cry, and after he left, he warned the person who was disorganized that after this hot discussion, Terence gives the class a break and then they continue practicing with the new drummer. During the break, when Andrew is taking notes on a notepad, Terence comes to him and asks questions about his personal life, about his parents. Andrew's father is a teacher and writer, and his mother left them some years ago, and after Terence reminds Andrew not to care about other people's opinions and continue on his way, they start the training with the song Whiplash. At first, he is satisfied with Andrew's playing, but after a few moments, Terence stops the practice and asks Andrew to play again. He plays and in the end, Terence throws a gauge and comes to him and by shouting, tries to tell him where he went wrong. This Terence behavior makes him cry. Terence continues the practice with the main drummer. After class, Andrew spends all his time practicing. His hand hurts, but he keeps going, gets hurt again and keeps going. He doesn't stop practicing. After that, he goes to his date with Nicole. In their meeting, they talk about the reason for choosing the school, about not communicating with school children and these issues, and Nicole clearly shows that she likes Andrew. At the Overbrook Jazz competition, the band is preparing to perform in the competition. In the first performance, they perform Irene's song and Andrew plays the sheet music as a substitute drummer. After the performance, Tenor gives the sheet music folder to Neiman to keep for the second performance. Neiman puts the folder on the chair and when he is busy with drinking, Tanner asks him for the folder. When Andrew returns, he sees that the folder isn't on the chair. This incident causes a fight and argument. Fletcher calls them and Tanner tells him that he gave him the note folder and he lost it. Terence tells him that the duty of keeping the folder is with him and he shouldn't entrust it to anyone else. After that, he asks Tanner to take his sticks and go on stage and perform without notes. But Tanner says he can't, because he has a memory problem and can't remember. He must have the notes to be able to play. Terence starts insulting and arguing with the tenor that Andrew says he can play because he has practiced a lot and he's memorized Whiplash and can play it without sheet music. Terence has no other choice, but before the performance, he threatens Andrew that better not make a mistake. They go on the stage and Andrew has a good performance and Terence Fletcher is satisfied with him. This performance makes Shaffer School of Arts win the first place. In the next practice session, when Tanner is sitting behind the drums and Terence enters, he tells him to get up from behind the drums, because from now, Andrew will be the main drummer of the band. This incident makes Andrew gain self-confidence. He goes to his aunt's family for the weekend. Along the way, Nicole sends him a message to tell him for coming to her when he get back. At the dinner table where his aunt and father's family are present, they constantly talk about their son's academic and sports achievements and somehow they don't consider Andrew a successful person, and this issue, exactly when Andrew considers himself a successful person, causes a series of discussions to happen, and in the end, his father with saying that he really thinks that Lincoln Center, which is a professional music studio and group in the country, will choose him. This was the end of the discussion and Andrew leaves the table. In the next training session, after the end of Terence, he holds Andrew and tells him that he wants to try another person to perform double beats. At the same moment, Connolly enters. Connolly is the person who was turning pages for Andrew's amateur classes and now she has to compete with him to keep the drummer's seat. Terence asks them to perform the double beats. Connolly clearly ruins the performance, but Terence chooses her and wants her to come to the training after this. At this moment, Fletcher's phone rings and tell him bad news which makes him sad. When Andrew goes to his room to find out the reason for his wrong choice, Fletcher shouts and says that if you want the role, get it. Andrew feels the pressure again, goes to see Nicole and explains his situation to her that he doesn't have time for her due to his continuous and constant training, and since those trainings are the most important thing for him, it's better to end the relationship. Although Andrew's words are honest, they considered an insult to Nicole, and on the other hand because he mocked her feelings. For this reason, their separation doesn't go well and they parted with sadness. Andrew practices again and again and again, doubles beat with injured hands. In the next practice session, Terence Fletcher plays music. Before the practice, he tells a memory about a boy who was there 6 years ago and with great effort made himself the first trumpet player of Lincoln Center, and the music which they are listening, it's his. And the news that caused Terence to be in a bad mood was that Sean Casey had an accident and died, and this is difficult and tearful for him. After that, they start practicing the caravan music. But Connolly makes mistakes from the beginning, Andrew makes mistakes and Tanner makes mistakes too. Terence keeps the 3 drummers and lets the band to rest so he can find a drummer to beat right. This goes on until, after an hours, Terence finally chooses Andrew with his bloody hands. The next day at 5 p.m. they must be present at the Danlawn competition. Andrew goes there by bus, but the bus breaks down, so he rents a car and tries to reach to the performance but gets late, and when he gets there he realizes that he didn't bring his drumsticks, and after an argument with Terence, he gets on the bus. He gets his car and goes back to the same place where he rented the car, picks up his sticks and turns back, but on the way back, due to his haste and lack of attention, a truck hits him. Even though he is very injured and his car is destroyed, he brings himself to the performance stage. But the performance doesn't go as it should be. The stick falls out of Andrew's hands several times, which makes Terence stop the performance and tell Andrew that he is expelled from the group. This word causes Andrew to lose his control and attack him and get into a physical fight. In a meeting arranged by his father in the presence of a lawyer, they tell him that Sean Casey didn't have an accident but committed suicide, and according to his mother, the reason for this was Terence Fletcher's behavior with him, which made him an anxious and depressed person, and finally he committed suicide. They ask Andrew to confirm this issue so that Terence can be fired from there so no one else will be like him. Andrew agrees. On the other hand, he puts aside all his instruments and works in a cafe restaurant in the summer and fills his time again by watching movies with his father. He wants to call Nicole but she refuses. Life has become like an endless circle for him, until one night in the street in front of the door of a cafe he sees a jazz performance and their musician is Terence Fletcher. He goes into the cafe and sees the performance. After the end he wants to leave but Fletcher calls him and they are talking in a table. He tells about his dismissal from Shaffer, but he is supposed to be the leader of Extreme for a performance at the JVC festival. He asks Andrew to come to the performance, not as a spectator but as a drummer, because they are going to perform the same 2 tracks, Whiplash and Caravan, and he will be happy to have him as the performer. Andrew takes out his instruments again and starts practicing. This festival can cause him to be chosen by Lincoln Center. On the day of the performance, everything goes well until they go on stage and Terence as the leader announces that they are going to perform another piece. Before the performance, he tells Andrew that he knows that Andrew has told them and got him fired. This work of Terence is to revenge Andrew. In the first performance, Andrew obviously can't do anything and only improvises through his auditory intelligence, but he doesn't respond at all. Because of this, the performance goes bad. This incident makes Andrew to leave the stage with sadness, but when Terence prepares the audience for another performance, Andrew returns to the stage and starts playing Caravan, and the band says that he will give them the code to accompany. This time, Andrew forces Terence to accompany him. Andrew takes the performance to the highest level and shows his ability in this field to everyone.